about 4.
Shall I write you a script what to say?
What kind of script?
It's like a generic thing.
No, I just say Assalamu alaikum. We got the speaker and
so many things tumejirestrict kwa excuse ambazo kumbe funding vitu shanifahamu. Sasa watu wataka wasione pesa zikae kwenye account.
Ndio hiyo mwenyewe ulikuwa sijajua juzi hiyo ulikuwa mnazungumza shocked.
Mimi shocked. Mimi wananilipa 1000 wasema hakuna pesa siku zile mimi sacrifice for 4 years. Kumbe pesa zipo zimekaa kwenye account. Mimi ndio naniumiza hiyo sasa. I have to serve umechukua my pension money pesa yangu nilikuwa natumia utasurvive on 1000 chini. Every year deduct 5 pesa yangu pension yetu imekwisha kwenye nini cover the deficit. And then kwamba kweli hakuna pesa. Kumbe that's not the case.
Huyu akaja kaziacha hapa sasa did he use it? Did he know?
Kwa nyuma. Shafunguliwa hizo. Mimi mwenyewe nimeshangaa yani nasikia kwamba
kana mimi nimwambia tunayo hii.
Au ulisema ya printer hiyo sio printer hii ulisema ndio ulipomwambia anasema.
Ya printer hii kwa wapi? Ya printer hii ni tofauti. 71 man. Let me find out. Toto kwenda kuchukua.
Kwa hivyo ndio Hashimi haja
Testing, testing. Assalamu alaikum. Testing.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wal aqibatu lil muttaqin. ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. My respected brothers and sisters, I would like to welcome you again today to our Saturday program, which we have been doing this for number of years now in our masjid, where we invite some of the speakers to come to talk to us about matters ranging from religious, spiritual, medical, and today we have tried to introduce something different about the criminality of the knives. The reason why we as a masjid took this initiative to speak about the knife crime because of the rising tide of this trend, especially within the youth in Northampton as well as in nationwide. And there are so many implications. So as a masjid and as a Muslim community, because we have our own youth who are growing up and they may be interested, they may be groomed, they may be influenced by their peers to involve themselves within this type of criminality. Little did they know about the consequences of their actions. I just saw on the Chronicle and Echo, just on the 5th of March this year, there's a 16-year-old boy who has been arrested on suspicion of threatening a person with bladed article in connection with the incident. So this just happened recently, a 16-year-old boy. So to us, this is an alarm, and as a Muslim community, we need to take action and we need to create awareness among our Muslim community. So today we've invited Brother Waqqar Ali, who is a criminal defense solicitor working with the Reed Solicitors Company. He has vast experience in criminal law in this country, and he will be speaking to us, explaining from the criminal side and also from the legal side, and if there's any defense side for them, inshallah. Brother Waqqar, you're welcome. Fadl.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Thank you for coming today to this talk. It's a very holy month, as you know, that we are going through, the month of Ramadan, as you hear every night from the Imams. That every minute in this month is very, very important and blessed. Therefore, at this hour, at 5 o'clock during Ramadan, when you are all fasting, to talk about a topic which involves knives is important. There is a reason why this conversation needs to happen. There is a reason why this topic needs to be discussed amongst the youth and the local community. Because knife crime is a very serious issue in the UK. Research by the Office of National Statistics has confirmed that over the last 5 years, every year, knife crime is on the rise, and it's not a gentle rise, it's a significant rise. a large number of young people, and that is why this talk is aimed at young people, end up being killed as a result of knife crime. Now, I am by profession a criminal solicitor. As the brother pointed out, I work for Reed's Solicitors. We are one of the largest criminal law firms in the country, with numerous awards, numerous high-profile cases that we are involved in. And over the last 5 years, I have dealt with a number of murders in Northampton, where I have defended clients who have been charged with murders. Some have been acquitted, some have been convicted. And the stories are not going to be new to you because the names or the news has been out there. I will go through a particular story towards the end of my talk, which I hope will enable you to live through the journey of 3 people who, like most of you, had never been in trouble before. And within a blink of an eye, their lives and the lives of their families changed to an extent that they can never be the same again. 7 seconds it took, 7 seconds, for the lives of a number of people to change. Therefore, it's very important to talk about this, because it's an issue which is not just affecting us, it's affecting other people. So if I carry a knife, it's just not me that is being affected. It's my mother, my father, if I'm convicted of an offense. If I end up killing somebody with it, it's the deceased, his family, his relatives, my family, and it's a ripple effect. So it's not one of those offenses that's limited to you. Because if you are the only son that your parents have, then you need to give serious thought to what will happen if you are put away for life for stabbing somebody who then dies. Now, in young people, the young people carry, and we talk about young people because the statistics show that a lot of young people carry knives. Can anybody hold their hand up and say that they have a knife on them, or they go around carrying a knife? See, this is the problem. Nobody will hold their hand up and say, I go around carrying a knife. Yet, when an incident happens, knife is the biggest killer in terms of weapons, because you don't know who's carrying it. That's the danger of it. When person A has a verbal argument with person B, and that verbal argument turns into a physical argument, you don't know which one of them these days is carrying a knife and which one is going to take a knife out and is going to use it. That is why it is very, very scary. Young people carry knives for a number of reasons. It is important to educate ourselves about this, because if we educate ourselves, then hopefully we can see the marks, the indicators that may help us prevent a crime being committed. That crime could be carrying a knife, that crime could be threatening somebody with a knife, that crime could be a robbery with a knife, that crime could be stabbing someone and killing them with a knife. And if as a result of our education we are able to stop something from happening of that nature, then that makes you a change maker. And the topic of this talk is change makers. So it's very important to know how we can be change makers. We can't be change makers if we keep our eyes and ears closed and we don't pick up these indicators or these factors which might help us work out what is going on. So in young people, why do young people carry knives? They carry knives because a lot of the time it's peer pressure, because their friends carry knives. And they think, because I am in a circle where 3 or 4 other lads carry knives, I'm the 5th one, it will make no difference to me if I carry a knife. Another reason why people carry a knife is to protect themselves. They seem to think that they have a defense in law if you carry a knife for self-protection. This is not right. You cannot carry a knife to protect yourself. It is illegal to have a knife for that reason. And it is so delicate because you might be carrying a knife, you might be a really nice person carrying a knife, you get involved in a conflict. Your emotions, it's a verbal conflict initially, your emotions then run high, something happens, and then you take a knife out and you use it. And you act on impulse and you end up stabbing somebody. This is not uncommon in Northampton at all. I can think in the last year of 3 incidents where perfectly good young boys with never been in trouble before, never arrested by the police, never done anything wrong, never even got excluded from school, carried a knife just to protect themselves, then got involved in an argument, needless argument, over nothing. The knife came out and they ended up stabbing somebody. 3 very different stories. One arrested for attempted murder, one arrested for Section 18 stabbing, one arrested for murder and convicted of murder. So that's why it is very important to have these conversations. Now, there are a number of offences that can be committed with a knife. The first one is just to carry a knife. Now, these days, we, young people especially, are on social media, and there are lots of posts on social media. We get influenced with social media. We see people carrying knives on social media. We get influenced by them. Therefore, we do not think twice about carrying a knife because we see other people doing it. That is a very dangerous position to be in. Being on social media is one thing. In real life, if you're carrying a knife, you can get a lengthy prison sentence, even if it is your first offence. As an adult, if you are carrying a knife, without anything else happening, the police find a knife on you, you can get up to 4 years imprisonment. And that is without having a record of previous criminal convictions or without even having a fight. The police just stop you, they find a knife inside your coat pocket or jacket pocket, you can get up to 4 years imprisonment out of nowhere. Now, if you're a young man who's about to go to university or is working and you end up in that predicament, that is a very slippery slope. Because from there onwards, it starts your sentence. 4 years. For what? For carrying a knife. There are some other offences which are not known to the general public. More recently, because knife crime was so high in UK, they came up with some new offences. Some of these offences are that you can't even have certain types of weapons and knives even at home. You can't have them under your bed, you can't have them under your pillow, you can't have them in your wardrobe, you can't have them in your garage, because that is a criminal offence. And the public doesn't know that. There's lots of clients I come across who are charged with having a sword hanging on their wall in their living room. The police go to the address to do something else, they see the sword, and they arrest the person for having it, because it is now a criminal offence to have a sword, a Rambo knife, a zombie knife, and these are the legal names for these bigger knives. We're not talking about a kitchen knife, we're talking about a much bigger knife, Rambo knife, zombie knife, knuckle dusters. These items you can't even have at home. You are looking at a minimum of 12 months imprisonment if you are caught with such an item in your home that you totally forgot about. You may have bought it 3-4 years ago, or somebody may have given it to you, you forgot about it, it was lying in your drawer, the police attend for something else and they search your address and they find it, you'll be arrested for it. and you will be going to court. You will not even be granted bail from the police station to the court. You'll be remanded in custody and you'll be going to court in the morning, and at court you'll be pleading guilty because you can't say, I did not know, because ignorance is not a defense in this case, in this particular instance. You can't say, I never knew this was a criminal offense. So therefore it is very, very important for not just the young people, but the parents as well, to be aware of this, because if you think that your child has such a weapon, a knife, something that looks like a knife, and believe me, there are loads and loads and loads of different types of knives these days. If you are in possession of it, even at home, it's a criminal offense. Now, as far as sentencing guidelines are concerned, 4 years for possession of a knife is the starting point. The offences are, the sentencing guidelines increase where the knives are taken out, where there are dangerous circumstances. For example, there is risk of a confrontation happening with somebody. So in those cases, the sentencing range goes to 5 years and above, and you can get a sentence of round about 8 to 9 years where the knife is taken out to threaten someone in a scenario where a large disturbance can happen. So it is very, very important to be aware of these things, and to be very, very aware of the fact that young people are most likely to find themselves committing these offences. The reason why young people are most likely to commit these offences is because of, A, it's very easy to get knives. Guns have a lot more legislation surrounding them. To buy a gun, you need to provide a lot of details, a lot of ID documents, registration, etc., etc. Whereas knife, you can buy a knife from the internet tomorrow and it will come in the post. We can buy it today, it'll come in the post tomorrow morning, and nobody will know about it. Nobody will check that you have bought a knife or that it is in your possession. Therefore, for young people, it's the easiest thing to do. And that is scary, because young people sometimes do not make the best of choices. And for them to have an offensive weapon like that is a cause for concern. Therefore, the responsibility lies with the parents to ensure that they know what the children are doing in terms of buying things online. They need to know who their children are associating with. They need to know what is being purchased, if anything of such nature. If the children have certain interests in knife, that the parents need to be aware of it. Now, again, quoting the national statistics that have been provided by the Office of National Statistics, people who carry knives are at most risk of being stabbed or hurt by the knife that they are carrying. We have had countless amount of cases whereby the knife on the scene comes from the person who thinks they are defending themselves. So an altercation happens, you are carrying a knife, you get the knife out to protect yourself, and somebody takes it off you and stabs you with it. Can you imagine that scenario? Your own weapon, your own knife used to hurt you with. And it's not uncommon, very frequent in fact, that the person carrying the knife ends up being the victim of the knife crime, same knife that they are carrying. Now, for young people, it is very important to intervene. It's a vicious circle they get into. I need to have a knife because my friends have a knife. I need to have a knife because it makes me feel secure to have a knife. I need to have a knife because everybody in my gang has a knife. I need to have a knife because the other gang has a knife. And in a young person's mind, this vicious circle keeps on going and going and going. And you can't break away from this circle, because the moment they break away, they don't have a knife that particular day, they might feel extremely anxious, extremely worried, very vulnerable and fragile, because I haven't got a knife. How am I going to protect myself if something happens? So to get into a young person's head is very important, because otherwise this vicious circle continues. Nothing will matter to them. Nothing is more important to them than protecting themselves with a knife. And therefore, unless you break that down, you are not going to stop them from carrying one. And the way of breaking things down is one of the main things that we can do is to talk to them. So if you have a friend that you, same age as you, that you know carries a knife, you, as somebody who has attended this session, somebody as a change maker, can speak to them and tell them that this knife, the only person at the moment that is at most risk of being hurt by this knife is you yourself. You can be that change maker in that person's life. Talk to them. Obviously, if it doesn't work the first time, talk to them again. Have a casual conversation with them. You as parents, you as teachers, if you think your children or children that you are dealing with are carrying knives, be alert to that fact. Talk to them, engage with them, and tell them that there are different ways to cope with things, and this is not the way to cope with conflict resolution. If you have a conflict with somebody, carrying a knife is not the way to resolve that conflict. Unless they understand that, they're not going to put that knife down. And that knife puts you in equal amount of danger as him. If your friend carries a knife regularly and you are the best friend of that person and he ends up stabbing somebody, you as the best friend are at risk of being stabbed by somebody who is a friend of that person who has got stabbed, because that is unfortunately how the cookie crumbles in this. I stab your friend stabs my friend, puts me at risk. This is how it works. So unless you get your friend to put the knife down, unless you get your friend to let go of that, you are going to be at risk as long as you are friends with this person that carries a knife. So sometimes we don't think about this. Sometimes we think, oh, he's carrying a knife. Yeah, not my problem. I don't care. He wants to carry it, he can carry it. But I'm in his company all the time. He's my friend. Therefore, that puts me in the spotlight as somebody who is associated with a knife carrier. Now, I'll come back to that a bit later on, because there is a very important story, a very important case that happened recently that is worth talking about, in which 3 people got involved for very different reasons. One was a knife carrier, one was a friend that knew nothing about knives, one was the one who got stabbed by the knife. And all 3 of them, their lives changed drastically as a result of what happened. Anybody over here that goes to Kingsthorpe Community College? No? So in 2023, there was a young lad in Northampton. This is a recent story, a case I was involved in, who got stabbed by the name of Fred Shand. This is his photograph. He was big news, Northampton. He went to Kingsthorpe College. In March 2023, well, just before March 2023, 2 days before, he had an online argument with somebody. Him and his friends had an online argument about a girl with a couple of other lads. They'd never met each other, but the argument spanned over 2 days. Boy A was in town centre in Northampton, met up with Fred's friend, well, didn't meet him, coincidentally saw him in Taco Bell's in town centre in Northampton. and beat him up and showed him a knife. Boy A was carrying a knife. He showed the other lad a knife. The next day, Fred and his friends saw some of the friends of boy A in McDonald's in town centre, which is right next to Taco Bell's. And they beat the friend up and showed him knives. Third day, 23rd of March, boy A went looking for Fred. He went looking for Fred. He went to Kingsthorpe Community College. He went after school and he got him and his friend, so boy A and boy B, went to Kingsthorpe Community College looking for Fred because of what Fred had done the day before in McDonald's. Fred had beaten up boy A and boy B's friend. Just as boy A was leaving his house, he decided to pick a knife up. He'd never been in trouble before. He'd never got arrested, never carried a knife before, just decided to pick a knife up from the kitchen in case something happened. And he went to Kingsthorpe Community College. He got there for about 3:20 p.m. By that time, the school had finished. He asked around for Fred, but Fred had gone. Fred had left school and was on his way home. By chance, him and his friend, boy B, bumped into Fred, who they had never met before and they'd never physically spoken to him. And they started chasing Fred. Fred stood his ground and fought with both of them. And what boy A did, boy A got a bit of a beating from Fred. So boy A gets his knife out and swings at Fred. It misses the first time. The second time, he stabs Fred in the chest. And it ends up going through Fred's lungs, and Fred fell on the floor in the middle of the day, 3 o'clock. The school's just, well, 3:30. The school's just finished. Parents are collecting kids. Busy traffic on Harborough Road in Northampton, Kingsthorpe area. Fred falls down, and within 10 minutes, he has passed away. He has been killed by that knife that boy A was carrying. The judge, in his summing up, called this an absolutely senseless action between 4 boys that were not known to the police, had never been in trouble before, had never been on the wrong side of the law, and before you know, they have all ended up in a scenario with life-changing consequences. I will read to you a small paragraph from the judge's judgment. As they approached the junction with Kingsthorpe Grove just before 3:35 p.m., the two groups spotted each other. There was considerable traffic on the road. Fred and his friend crossed over the road to the traffic island. At the same time, boy A and boy B drove past the green and then turned back onto it. They got off the scooter. They were on a voice scooter. They got off the scooter. The two pair of youths came together on the green and a fight started. Fred lashed out at boy B. Boy B fell to the ground. At that point, boy A moved forward and chased Fred and got his knife out. Fred ran back and went straight into a tree. Boy A moved forward and stabbed Fred in the chest. Fred staggered and then collapsed onto the edge of the road. Boy A and boy B turned round and ran away. The whole incident was captured on CCTV. The fight itself lasted no more than 7 seconds. In 7 seconds, lives changed. 1 gone, 2 arrested for murder. Now, boy A was 14 years old. Fred was a lot older, Fred was 15 to be 16. And boy B was 17 going on to 18. Now it transpired during this case that it was boy B who had egged boy A to bring a knife to the scene. Boy A had never intended to bring a knife, but boy B, that friend, that one friend, told him, we're going to find Fred, we're going to fight with Fred, bring a knife in case something goes wrong. And what the 14-year-old did was caved in, peer pressure, picked a knife up last minute. He didn't intend to take a knife. It was those whispers, bring a knife, we're going to fight him, we're going to teach him a lesson for what he did the day before to our friend in McDonald's in town centre, bring a knife, we'll teach him a lesson. What happened? Well, at the end of the trial, boy B got found not guilty of murder. Boy A, who had done the stabbing, got found guilty of murder. Boy B, the adult, the 17, 18-year-old, walked free. He was remanded in custody for best part of 9 months, awaiting the murder trial. Boy A was also remanded. Boy A got a life sentence, and boy B walked out the door. And who sowed those seeds in boy A's mind? Boy B did. So when you are keeping those friends, you need to keep an eye on them as to who says what. If you have that friend that makes those whispers of carrying a knife, think twice as to whether that is a friend that you have and whether that is a friend worth keeping. In this case, it's those whispers that resulted in a young boy stabbing another young boy and getting a life sentence. He won't be out until he's at least 30 years old. And he's what, 15 now? 14 at the time of stabbing somebody. So this is just a local recent story. The case law is full of cases like this. I dealt with a case last year. A lad goes out, young Polish lad goes out, 15 years old, to buy milk for his mother. He has an obsession with knives. He goes to the corner shop. He puts a lock on his bike that he secures with a lamp. There is some problem with another lad inside the shop. It spills out. Again, it happened in NN1 in Northampton. It spills out. He's got a flick knife on him. He gets his knife out and stabs the other lad. Never been in trouble before. Never been on the wrong side of the law. Charged. Luckily for him, the boy didn't die. The boy sustained serious injury, and the boy, the one who was stabbed sustained serious injuries. The one who did the stabbing got arrested for attempted murder. He was found guilty of attempted murder, and he received a prison sentence. Again, never set foot in a police station before then. Ended up with a prison sentence in a scenario in which he didn't even know the person who he stabbed. All because he was carrying a knife, emotions were heightened, an argument happened, and he made a rash decision to take the knife out and stab somebody with it. So these are some of the recent things that have happened in Northampton. As change makers, brothers and sisters, it is your responsibility to keep ears and eyes open for what is happening around you. If you are somebody who carries a knife, please think twice about it, because I have been on the receiving end or at least I have dealt with families that have been on the receiving end of punishment that can be imposed for carrying knife crimes. I have also seen the damage that knife crimes can cause, and it wouldn't be right for me not to warn anybody who carries a knife against this. Now, one of the questions that you may have in your mind as a young person is, what can I do if I am carrying a knife? There are lots of things you can do. Firstly, speak to somebody, confide in somebody. Don't just make it your burden. Share with somebody that you trust. Secondly, scattered around the county are amnesty boxes where you can go discreetly and dispose of that knife that you have. Or you can advise your friend to do it. This is supposed to be done anonymously. The amnesty boxes are there for you to dispose of the knives, and you will not be in trouble for doing that. Or what you can do is speak to your teachers. If you come to the madrasa over here, or if you want to speak to me, I will leave my details with the teachers here. You can drop me an email. Things can be done discreetly. The police does not need to be informed. This is not the purpose of my conversation. I am usually on the opposite side to the police. I am defending. So please don't take me as somebody who works for the police. I don't work for the police. I'm on the opposite side, usually fighting against the police in defending my clients. But in terms of knife crime, if you know of somebody, or if you are somebody that is in possession of knives, then please think very carefully about carrying them, because they are a serious risk, not just to you, to your family, to other members of the public. Because in a fight, if you drop a knife, if you're carrying a knife and you have a fight with somebody and you drop it, somebody picks up, they can quite easily stab not just you but somebody else with that knife. So you are effectively bringing the problem to the scenario, to the scene. Now, that is the crux of my talk. I just wanted to go over a few questions, and I would like you to be involved in this, because it is important that you understand through interaction the importance of this topic. So a question I ask you guys, anybody can answer by raising their hand, is this: whether this scenario is legal or illegal. A shopkeeper sells a knife to a 17-year-old. Do you think it's legal or illegal? Go on, young man. Illegal. Is that what you said? Yeah. Illegal. That's correct. It is illegal for shopkeepers to sell knives to anybody under the age of 18, unless very specific exceptions apply. Therefore, when you go to buy a knife, they should really be checking your ID. And if a shopkeeper sells a knife to somebody who is under 18, it is a criminal offense. Now, a second scenario, you and your brother both enjoy fishing. You take your brother's fishing knife out to show your friends. Is that legal or is that illegal? Anybody? So you are taking your brother's knife to show your friends. Legal or illegal, young man? Illegal, correct. There is no lawful reason in that scenario for a knife to be taken out. Good. Does anybody know what the youngest, what the age is in this country for a criminal prosecution? What's the youngest person? What's the youngest age that somebody can be prosecuted? Any guess? 10. Correct. Good answer. So somebody as young as 10 years old can be prosecuted by the police in respect of these matters. Now, 10 is a very young age, but not very many people know that. One final question. When you are in school, a teacher stops you and starts searching you for a knife. Is he acting legally or is he acting illegally? What do you think? Yes, young man. Illegal. Is that what you said? That's not correct. A teacher, if a teacher has reasonable suspicions to suspect that you are carrying a knife, they can search you. The teachers need to be appointed by the head teacher who carry out the searches. So a head teacher and those appointed by the head teacher can carry out searches of young people, of the students in the school who they suspect are carrying knives. One thing they cannot do is carry out an intimate search. They can carry out a strip search. There are certain criteria for the strip search. For example, the teacher needs to be the same gender as the student. It needs to be done privately. But what they can't do is carry out an intimate search. For that, what they have to do is they have to inform the police and get the police to come and do it. Okay, so those were the important key points from my talk. Sheikh, are there any question and answer session we're doing? Yep. Does anybody have any questions in respect of anything that I have said that I can help with? Yes, brother.
If someone was carrying the knife on them, like you said, because they wanted to out of self-defense, even though it's illegal, but they got attacked first and defended themselves,
yeah,
would they be guilty in that situation?
No, they'll be guilty. Self-defense, the law on self-defense is pretty clear. You cannot use a knife in self-defense. Your actions need to be reasonable and proportionate to what has happened to you. So, for example, in a situation, if two people are fighting, one is punching the other one cannot get a knife out and stab him, because that is disproportionate in law. One's protection is never a good excuse and is not accepted in law as being a legal reason for carrying a knife. And I want to emphasize that, because that is the biggest thing the young people have misconception about. I carry a knife to protect myself. Unlawful, not allowed. Yeah?
Shukran for a nice talk. Quick question. Are we affected in much with the gangs in our community?
Sorry, brother, I can't hear you.
Are we affected much with the gangs like other big cities?
Yeah.
Also, any advice for our youngsters on
Yeah.
regard with that?
Yeah. So there is a gang culture in Northampton. There is a gang culture nearly in every town. We need to be aware of it. We need to ensure that our young people are not involved in gang culture, because it is, one of those vicious circles and cycles that is very difficult to get out of. There are gangs in Northampton. There are gangs that have come from outside Northampton, working in Northampton. And when we talk about gang-related crime, there is a huge array of criminal offences that gangs make young people do. Not just carrying knives and stabbings. We go in the realms of carrying drugs. We go in the realms of committing other serious offences like stealing, burglaries, robberies, etc. Not long ago, there was an incident in Northampton whereby a gang came from outside, a Romanian gang of young people. They were a gang from a different town. And they went into a phone shop in the middle of the day and stole mobile phones by yanking them off the display in the middle of the day, all captured on CCTV. So this is the working of gangs. It is very important to be aware of this issue. And if we suspect that our child or somebody we know is involved in gang, again, the first thing you can do is speak to them and bring awareness to them as to what this can lead to. I hope that answers.
If, for example, let's say I get into a fight with a certain individual and like they use a knife, but I somehow get the knife and stab them, would that be charged with murder, or would it just be self-defense?
Okay, so that is exactly what happened in a case not long ago, whereby somebody, that exact scenario happened. You will certainly be charged with murder, you will certainly have a court case, and you will most certainly end up standing in the dock being cross-examined by barristers, and then you'll have to satisfy a jury in a Crown Court case that your actions were reasonable in the circumstances. So whether or not you are found guilty of murder is a matter for the court. They'll decide on the facts of that particular case, but you will certainly be arrested for murder, and you will certainly have a court case that follows. It's a very thin line here between defending yourself and stabbing somebody. The court will ask you what other things you could have done other than picking that knife up and stabbing that person. And if you are not able to answer that question, then you will be in trouble. So if you're not able to run away, the court will ask you, why didn't you run away? Why didn't you just move away from the scene? So all of those factors a court will look at, but most definitely you'll be arrested for murder if he dies, and you'll have a court case.
Assalamu alaikum, brother.
Assalam.
Thank you for coming today. I just wanted to touch on the statistics you said about people getting stabbed with their own knife. It's very high. It's between 80 and 90%, I think, above people who carry a knife end up getting stabbed with their own knife. And also another thing, if your friend was to carry a knife and you knew about it and he then used the knife, would that make you a conspirator?
Slightly louder, brother. I can't.
Sorry, but if your friend carried a knife and you knew about it and he then used it while you were present, does that make you a conspirator?
Right.
To murder?
Yeah. Very good question. The short answer is yes. Yes, it does. You'll definitely, again, be charged with it. Joint enterprise will be what's going to be put on you. You don't have to carry a knife to be... In fact, not long ago, I'll tell you what, not long ago, 2017, I represented a young man, again, another murder in Northampton that happened outside the casino as you go down this main road. A young man by the name of Liam Hunt was killed by a group of people. One lad had a knife, 5 people got arrested. My client was one of them, right? The police knew one person, there was one stab wound. There was one knife on the scene, CCTV cameras. 5 people got arrested. 5 people couldn't have stabbed him. He didn't have 5 different stab wounds. One lad got convicted of murder. But for the best part of 2 years, 5 lads were in the dock, remanded in custody, charged with murder. There was a court case that went all the way through. And the jury was left with the question of how much guilty were these other 4 lads. Now, in that case, it transpired that the other 4 lads did not know that the 5th lad was carrying a knife. That's how the evidence came across in that case. Therefore, on that basis, the other 4 were found not guilty of murder. The one who was carrying a knife was found guilty. And he was a young man, 17 years old at that time. So the name of the deceased was Liam Hunt. If you want to Google that when you go home. He was killed not long ago in Northampton, another sad murder case involving young people.
does the sentence change depending on the location? Like, say if I was in a school or in town, would it change?
So just a bit louder, brother. What was your question?
Let's say I was in a school, would the sentence change?
You were in a school.
And
yeah, would the sentence be less? Ah, right, okay. So, very good question. If you are carrying a knife and that knife is found in a school, it's an aggravating factor. It's an aggravating factor that the knife is found on a school premises. Now, if you are going to a school, that means you are a youth. So you will be sentenced according to the youth sentencing guidelines. The youth guidelines are different to the adult guidelines in generally speaking. So for an adult, first time knife offence, you're looking at 6 to 12 months in prison. For a youth, you're looking at a referral order. So working with the Youth Offending Service, because what the youth justice system does not want to throw you into prison. Throw you meaning you a young person into prison. They want to work with young people to discourage them from carrying knives and committing crimes. So in this country, as a youth, you are always given the chance to work with agencies to correct your behavior. Unless, of course, if you have committed a very big crime, like murder. Then that option is taken away, and prison, just like an adult. However, you'll be going into a young person's, a young offenders institute, as opposed to an adult prison, which will be applicable in adults' case. Does that make sense? Yeah?
If someone's chasing you with a knife and you see metal or a weapon on the floor and you hit the person with the weapon, would you still go to jail?
So if you see a weapon on the floor and you pick it up and you hit them with it, would you still go to jail?
Yeah.
Yeah, you would. Well, depending on the circumstances, if that person dies from that, then yeah, you would. But why would you pick up that metal and hit them with it? As self-defense. Okay. Again, you'll have a court case and you will raise the self-defense before the court. If the court finds that there is self-defense, they'll find you not guilty. But before they do that, you'll have to give evidence and you'll be cross-examined and you'll be asked the question of what else could you have done in that situation.
For the sisters, if you want to ask questions, you can write them on paper and bring them over, because this is a very important topic today. So you may have some questions or queries. Please just scribble down and then bring them over. Brother Waqqar will be quite happy to answer them for you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Okay, so in a case when you are in a confrontation with someone...
Sorry, brother, a bit louder, I cannot hear you.
Okay. In a case when you are in a confrontation with someone who possesses a knife, you've mentioned it several times, you should find other means to get away from there. So can you give a list of other things you could do to get away from such a person in such a situation? In some cases you say you could run away, probably if they're still chasing you, what are other options?
Put the mic back a little bit.
What are other options you have to get away in such a confrontation?
Fine. So if you get into a confrontation with somebody who has a knife, what are the other things you can do? Yeah. So if you know somebody's carrying a knife and you are involved in a confrontation with them, I think you need to think again whether you need to be involved in that confrontation. You need to take a back step from that, because he's carrying a knife and he or she can do anything with the knife. So I would... If you are seeing your friend getting involved in that, you would move your friend away from that. As a good friend, I would expect my friend to move me away from a confrontation where somebody's carrying a knife. Because that's what good friends do. That's what we are supposed to do. We are change makers. That's what the topic of this lecture is. If you are a genuine change maker, you would intervene. You would create distance. And if it is you yourself that is in the middle of that, you take a step back. Because what might follow is a lot worse than what you are currently in. So it is important to take a step back, reassess the situation, and maybe move away. Every argument isn't there to be won. You don't have to win every argument. You have to balance things out. Have a look at what is happening and take a step back, especially the older boys over here. If you think somebody younger that you know, a friend or somebody from your madrasa or school is involved in that predicament, as an older person, one would expect you to make a more sensible decision, a sensible choice about moving away from that scenario where somebody's carrying a knife and your friend is getting involved in a heated discussion with them. You would then move away and you would go and report the matter. Obviously, do it in a way that doesn't put your life or the life of your friend at risk, but you would certainly report it and bring it to the attention of the authorities like a law-abiding citizen should be doing. One knife off the street can save a life, and one action from you might end up saving a life.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
This isn't about knives per se, but like what are the limits in terms of like physical self-defense if you're forced to physically fight back against someone? But you don't have a knife yourself, you're just doing whatever you can. What are the limits for that?
Right. So you want to know what's self-defense?
Yeah, what would be tough. So.
Right. Right. So again, this is a very, very good question. What is self-defense? The law says that a person cannot weigh up the nicety of their actions when they act in self-defense. So when you are acting in self-defense, you should do what is reasonable and proportionate, but if you end up doing slightly more, as long as it is not too much more, that is acceptable. The law says that when you are in that moment, you can't weigh up what you should do and shouldn't do. If you act in self-defense, you act in self-defense. Whatever you do, is reasonable, as long as it is not wholly disproportionate to what's gone on. Does that make sense? Yeah? So if somebody hits you once, you can hit them 3 or 4 times. I'm not advocating hitting anybody, I'm just giving an example. If you're acting in self-defense, if somebody hits you once, you can hit them 2 or 3 times back. But what you can't do is get a knife out and stab them, because that is on a wholly different level, extremely disproportionate. You'll be charged.
Hello, is there an independent organization dealing with the knife crime that's not connected to the police in Northampton?
Yes, there are very many charities that work with young people to address the issue of knife crime. A lot of those charities have been started by the families of those people who have been victims of knife crime. From the top of my mind, there is a charity called the Kinzella Trust. There is also a charity which deals with taking knives away off the streets by engaging young people and encouraging them to use amnesty boxes and confiding into adults and perhaps getting the knives off the street through those means. So there are very many charities. If you just need to Google them. If you are a concerned parent and you want your child to engage with those people, it is definitely worth looking online for charities that work with young people and with, who are involved in knife crime. I'm sure they will be more than happy to come and speak to the young person or the family about it.
Any more questions? Right. We'd like to thank Brother Waqqar for his very important talk about the knives. And based upon the Q&A, the questions which has been asked here, I can see that our audience was very engaging, and they managed to learn something from this program today, especially with the knife awareness. We say that as a masjid, we have a role to play, and that role is to make sure our youth are not involved in knife crime, are not engaged in gangs, because the consequences we know that they'll end up being in jail or being hurting someone or being the family being in very difficult situation or themselves being killed or stabbed or whatever. So there are so many consequences which we have to be very careful. So especially this message for our youth here, that from this talk today, I want you to leave this masjid today with this strong message from Brother Waqqar. So I don't know your final message, what you'll advise our youth, especially in the life they're living and how they need to deal with the situation in 1 or 2 minutes.
My last message to all of you that have attended today and listened to this talk is this. You are at the moment sitting in the mosque. This is a religious place. We are all Muslims. We are all followers of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the religion that he brought. He was a change maker. All the prophets that were sent by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala were change makers. They came into this world to prompt a change. And the topic of today's talk was change makers. So you, in your capacity as a young person, as a young Muslim, are under a duty to make a change when you see something which is about to go wrong or is going wrong. If you are seeing your friend carrying a knife, if you are seeing your family member, your older brother, your younger brother carrying a knife, you are advised to engage with them. Educate yourself on this. Be the change maker that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was. He did it on a much grand scale. You can do it in your individual capacity. One knife, as I said before, one knife off the street can save a life.
Okay. Jazakallah khair, Brother Waqqar, and Jazakallah khair for taking your time, for accepting our invitation today. And hopefully it'll be one of the many invitations we'll be asking you to come back here, because we need your help, we need your support, we need your knowledge and guidance, especially in the criminal side of the law where most of us are not aware of. Jazakallah khair. We have a few minutes before Iftar. I've got a message for you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
No problem at all.